He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And if thou gaze long into an abyss, the abyss will also gaze into thee. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about Black Frost here. He would be the inverse of Jack Frost. This is a demon, of course, from the Shin Megami Tensei series. And as somebody who played over 200 hours of Persona in order to platinum it, I became very friendly with many of these demons, of which Black Frost was one of them. Having missed out on the initial Jack Frost and following Pyro Jack Nendoroids, I felt it was pretty much my duty to strike and get Nendoroid 1493 Black Frost. What can be said about this cute little devil? Well, just that. He's a cute little devil. This guy is pretty awesome, and he's pretty simple. So rather than sit here and give you crazy explanations as to who and what he is, let's just go ahead and crack him open and see if he measures up to the task of being the Black Frost Nendoroid. He comes with a little pamphlet, but obviously enough, this is a simple Nendoroid, so we don't really need instructions here. But Black Frost here comes in one blister, and everything is presented rather well. I say this because I feel like you know exactly what you're getting when you look at the box and the listing and wind up purchasing this thing. This is it.
Oh, you playing Minecraft? I like it, cut G.
And here we have him. Out of the packaging, this is Black Frost. I think that this sort of design actually lends itself really well to the Nendoroid style, and I would love to see more stuff like this. But yeah, everything here is pretty satisfying looking. The colors are all decent. The sculpt is simple but effective in really portraying what he looks like. There's one or two things I don't like, so let's get into those. On his hat, which appears to have a Pikachu symbol on it, his antennas on the hat seem to be just a bit brighter than the hat itself. If you take a look, it's hard to tell, but in person it's far easier to see, I assure you. It's almost as if they're a bit shinier than his hat itself, and it just is a little off-putting for me. I also really don't like the little neck frill here. It's just kind of spinning around. It's very open. If you take his head off, you can see that hole is just too much. I mean, it's just bound to fall off or roll all over the place. There's a cut in the back of it, almost as if it's supposed to rest like this, but I don't think that'll ever really work. I'm surprised to see that he's pretty articulated. Obviously, his little antennas on his hat can twist around because they are on simple peg joints, but they crack when you first move them, so careful there. His head can go up and down decently enough, and it can turn side to side as well because it's on, of course, a pegged hinge, or a hinged peg, you decide. Now, what I really like is that his arms, rather than being on the simple pegs, are actually on hinge pegs as well, which allows for them to go in and out and swivel at the connection, which is very different than most Nendoroids, and I'll say a welcome addition. Now his forearm connects to his hand via another peg, which allows his hands to also swivel once you break that initial contact. His legs are similarly on hinged pegs, which allow them to kick up and down, as well as swivel at the connection. And that's pretty much all there is for articulation, because these are obviously pretty simple figures being Nendoroids. No wait, I lied. He does have a tail, which I guess you can turn side to side, though I don't think you'd really want to. But this is another interesting point, because you can take his tail off, and it's a simple peg joint. It's a pretty long peg though. But the reason that you can take the tail off is actually pretty weird, because instead of plugging the Nendoroid stand into his back, you'd actually plug it into this clear piece right here. This allows you to not break the immersion with removing his tail, and then still gives you a hole to plug the stand into. I don't know if this is that necessary, mainly because if I'm looking at him from behind to see his tail, am I really going to be that mad to see a stand in there instead? Or am I going to be worse off seeing this nasty hunk of clear plastic? I don't know, it just doesn't really seem that much better. Yeah, this is what that looks like in practice. Looks really great, doesn't it? I don't know, I think this is just hideous. They could have just put a peg in the back of his head, or I don't know, maybe even put one right here beneath the little frill and make the actual frill stay in one place. I mean, you can't really see it from the front. You can see just that bit of clear peeking out, but again, I feel like you could just put him on a stand and it really wouldn't matter that much. Normally, I would like to use one of the Nendoroid easel stands, but this is like putting a square peg in a round hole, and it just doesn't go in. So great. So that's where your handy, wait a minute. I would say use the regular Nendoroid stand, but it's got the same exact fitting at the end of the plug. My camera won't pick it up well, but that bit is more hexagonal than it is round, and that's not going to fit in his back, which means you have to use this attachment. And with that fitting being so low, an easel stand will basically do no good. He'll just keep falling forward because he doesn't really lay flush with where you're putting him. I mean, I guess that works, but it doesn't look great. I guess it's not so bad. You can't really see it from the front, but God, if he's turned slightly to one direction, you're gonna see the tail hanging out. All because they want you to see the tail hanging out. What the hell? And in all honesty, I feel like he would stand pretty decently even without a stand if you put his feet the right way. Boom. I did that one-handed. So who needs a stand? Now, Black Frost comes with no accessories to swap out his face. He's always going to be permanently wearing this devilish happy face, which I guess is fine, but I would have liked something. What he does come with, however, is a bunch of extra arms and hands. I shouldn't say a bunch. You can take the pegs from his shoulders and plug them into the new arms. And once attached, he now has a bent elbow arm, which could swing out, and you can spin his fist, which is now different than his open clawed hand. It doesn't really work too well because it's kind of tight, and connecting it was really difficult, so just be careful. You might want to heat this one up before attaching it. Oh, that's epic. You can already see there's like a big line right here. You can see it in the reflection. It's pretty bad, and that's just probably from his hand rubbing his side, which has happened very minimally since he's only been out of the box for about 15 minutes. Now, this is something interesting. Instead of leaving his legs the way they are, you could actually unplug the hinges that come on there and remove them entirely for something new. Now, these pieces are marked inside with an L or an R respectively for which side you'll put them on. And once those are in, you can actually plug the feet right back and resume your play. And what these do is basically give him a slight bend at the knee. You can see that he's tilted just a bit more forward, which I suppose is an interesting thing to do for a Nendoroid, though I don't know how practical it is. Still, I guess it's nice that they included it. But that's not even the only leg accessory he gets. Can you tell the difference in these parts? They're basically the same thing. Essentially what it is one is kicked out straight while the other is bent. Meaning, once these new peg joints are installed, he now has his legs kicked out. Which would mean if you attach his feet, he'll be basically sitting down. So that's pretty funny. If you take off the curled fingers and instead install the flat open ones, with his arms extended rather than bent, he can now sit down and extend his arms back to support his weight. And I've got to say, this is actually pretty hilarious. This might be the most charming thing so far. It's a bit of a pain to install, but I think once you do, it is worth it. You could essentially have him be the buddy on your desk, which is a fun little concept. I wish they'd do more stuff like this with other Nendoroids. So that goes over pretty much everything except for his best accessory. You want to know what his best accessory is? Well, ironically enough, it's actually Jack Frost. Yeah, his best accessory is a tiny Jack Frost that is being clasped in his fist. So it has to be attached as a fist, but the detail on this little guy is surprisingly good for him being such a small accessory. And that's pretty much all that it is. It's a tiny Jack Frost that he holds in his hand. I don't know if this means that Black Frost is comparatively much larger than Jack Frost, or if he shrunk him down or something. I'm also not sure if this is some sort of reference to Shin Megami Tensei, but I remember when you summoned them in Persona, they were pretty much the same size. But King Frost, on the other hand, not so much. Still, I think this is really funny, and like I said, I do think it is the best inclusion with this release. So, that being said, that wraps up all the accessories, so let's get into my final thoughts here. Black Frost, what am I going to do with you? Well, I've got to be honest, I'm pretty let down by this one. This is a neat Nendoroid, and I do like him, but unfortunately the execution was pretty bad. I think they could have done a lot more here, or just done things a lot better. And the fact that he is just so bare bones and hardly comes with anything makes it a hard sell. I almost regret opening him, because I don't know if I'm going to keep him. I think the figure looks great. It does look like him, but one problem was obviously light bouncing off of him really badly. And if you don't put light on him, he's pretty hard to see. There are some differing levels in color, which sort of made me mad in regards to the way things lined up. And again, he doesn't have many accessories. Another big problem I had was the fact that he is this sort of matte black finish, allowed for him to be scratched very easily. Just manipulating him for this review, I felt like I was running the clock, and at any moment I was going to put another scratch on him. Every time I moved his arms or legs or anything, I felt like I was at risk of ruining him further. Obviously that's a problem with posables, but all the more so with this. And finally, the stand joint. That thing was awful. It really makes displaying this thing a pain. Sure, you could probably put him in some cool poses with the Nendoroid stand and make him float and all that, but I don't know. I think I just really wanted to like him more, and now that I have him, he's kind of a letdown. It's not as if he's incredibly cheap either. This figure was close to $50, so again, he doesn't come with enough for me to really justify that price. I'm sure Shin Megami Tensei fans will not be discouraged from purchasing him. But if you're on the fence, I would just tell you that I don't really recommend it. With all that said, I'm going to give the Nendoroid of Black Frost a 6 out of 10. It's disappointing. I would have liked to have maybe seen a different accessory with him, maybe some sort of effect part would be fun, or even a clear acrylic summoning circle would be cool. But ultimately, with him having such potential to be damaged so easily, and coming with so little, I'm going to have to just say this is one of the weaker Nendoroids I've had in a while. But what do you guys think? Am I being too harsh here? Why don't you let me know? Did you get him? Do you want him? Drop a comment and let me know, and like the video, of course, if you did like it. Of course, I have plenty of other videos for you to check out, so why don't you go ahead and watch this one I'm putting up on screen. I also have an HLJ link if you want to use that to buy some figures. I get a small kickback in commission, and you don't pay any extra. So it's a good way to support the channel. But I've rambled on enough, so thank you so much for watching, have an amazing day, and keep on collecting. Hee ho.